Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
So it may be different.
It's different in that regard. Turkey's a member of NATO. U.S. does have a good relationship with Turkey. But at the same time, that does not preclude the fact that when Turkey begins to move military assets further into Syria, it's not good for Syria. It's not good for Israel. It's not good for the world. So it's a matter of trying to keep some balance and perspective. I don't think it was an intentional. If you look at what actually was done, there were some munitions that were put down on an airfield. No casualties. It was, I would say, a shot across the bow more than it was an attempt to try to start something. It's hard to fight it for a couple of reasons. One, so much money is being poured in by some of the Muslim Brotherhood affiliated states, whether it's Qatar or Turkey or wherever. I think also China and Russia are feeding it on social media, bot platforms, and pushing the narrative. It's challenging. Israel is great at fighting kinetic wars. I would say they could do better fighting the message war, telling their story. But they're up against a huge monolithic media that is out to get them.
Was about to do. So there's a lot of I understand the desire to not buy the official narrative, but if you're going down a rabbit hole that leads you to attack Erica Kirk, I mean, all we can ever do is trust our instincts, but also trust, our rationality. And I know Erica. She's a very, very good person. She's trying to raise two kids who just lost their father, and she just doesn't deserve the attacks that have been leveled against her.
İsrail bizimle boy ölçüşecek bir kapasitesi yok, az önce ifade ettiğim gibi. Biz diğer ülkelere benzemeyiz. Tabii bu gelişmeler ben üsteğmenliğimde başladığım bu çatışma, kriz ortamlarında yaklaşık 26 yılım geçti. Bütün coğrafyalarda savaştım. Tabii ilk başladığımız zaman hiçbir şeyimiz yoktu. Bir tüfek, bir de eski dürbün. Bugün tabii bu geldiğimiz aşamayı hayal edemeyiz.
They'll be a little bit higher for gasoline. I had it down to $1.85 a barrel. And then I said, but we have to make a journey to the Middle East because we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And that's what happened. And we've been very effective. We've wiped them out, militarily wiped out. Now they have some missiles. They have some drones. Their capacity to build them is very low right now compared to what it was 5 months ago. It was 5 months ago they were knocking them out. Now it's very hard for them to knock out anything. They're in bad shape. They have inflation that's 300%. Their currency is valueless. It's virtually valueless. Sure. Their military is not being paid. So they're in bad shape. But the key, the reason I did it, and we had no choice, and I would have done it again 100 times, they cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't be having a nuclear weapon.
And why not just then turn around?
Even though the debt is too high, even though we inherited this debt bomb from the Biden administration, we actually do have a plan to get the economy growing faster than the debt, and that's the most important thing. The issue that we've had under the Biden administration and what we're still kind of dealing with is that the debt was growing faster than American GDP. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. That's something that we're certainly fixing every single day in the Trump administration. But even though the media doesn't cover this, I'm glad you're asking this question because Scott Bessent is very much on top of it. He knows it's a problem, and he's got the president's empowerment to do something.
Верховна Рада має визначитися і внести зміни до законодавства, що військово-загальний обов'язок захищати країну належить до всіх громадян України. Гендерна рівність означає, жінки теж мають служити в армії.
Обов'язкова мобілізація всіх, і чоловіків, і жінок.
Так, і тоді ми зразу збільшимо мобілізаційний ресурс вдвічі. тоді можна чітко розуміти, що є військові посади і спеціальності, які абсолютно легко можуть бути осягнуті жінками, і їм не треба йти на полі бою. Вони закривають багато позицій в тилу і по забезпеченню, і тоді чоловіків можна пересувати з тилових позицій ближче до фронту. І це
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk finance and economics and capital markets. I've got Tom Teague coming on in the second segment. We're going to have a lengthy discussion on what's going on. I'm a former bond trader. This is fascinating to me, and you need to know what's happening because it affects you as far as interest rates, as far as your house, your car, your economy, your business, all of that. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I want to say hello to the crew in the chat. You're cleared hot. Whatfinger.com. Please check them out. They're a great aggregator site. They post a lot of our content, and we have a good partnership with them. You saw in the cold open, I think some really disturbing stuff. I mean, you know, who is Mike Huckabee working for? He's not the ambassador of the United States. He's the and I'm not anti-Israel, but he's the ambassador for Israel. He's sitting there lying. He's saying that the strike on Turkey was not intentional. Excuse me, the strike on Syria was not intentional. Even the Israeli opposition is talking about it in Israel. So who is this guy? I mean, what is he? He's just some kind of operative for the Israeli government, it seems like. He's not our ambassador, that's for sure. And wow. And he's sitting there talking about, you know, he doesn't think that, you know, that Turkey is... He's just making stuff up. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. The Turkish guy was on there also saying, you know, Israel don't mess with Turkey. Well, I'm telling you all this because the Israel-Turkey thing is a thing, and it's going to move into possibly kinetic action in Syria further than where we are now. We've had 2 strikes in Syria by Israel now so far. So this thing is moving to a head, and I just find it fascinating that Huckabee is saying what he's saying. You also saw in the one more thing about Huckabee. He said that it's hard to fight a monolithic media. Well, they just bought TikTok. They bought CNN. You know, what is this monolithic media? Again, we're not anti-Israel, but let's tell the truth here, okay? Also, Ukraine, they are pushing to draft women as the depopulation agenda continues. The bond market, you know, there was a famous saying, James Carville said, when I die and I'm reincarnated, I want to come back as the bond market because they're very powerful. And there's another saying on Wall Street, interest rates are low until they're not. So interest rates are moving higher. And even President Trump is talking about it. It's hurting the budget. It's impacting the service of the debt. So all of this is based on the Iran war, where oil is rising and we've got inflation coming into the entire economy. Tom is going to talk about all of that. And then we got this $40 trillion debt. We just went across that hurdle. So much to talk about. Let's do the mission brief. I'm your host, Todd Wood. Today is August 21st. This is your mission brief. The blob strikes back against the Ukrainian elections. Fedorov went out and said we need elections, and that was quickly shut down. So what's going on behind that? North Korea flexes with missile launches. Fauci, is he going down? His number 2 went down. Is it time for number 1? Britain tells migrants that rape is not okay. Imam Dami's grocery discount. We'll dig into all of that in stories after we talk with Tom Teague. But let's take a break, and we'll be right back and bring him in and talk interest rates. Stay with us.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience, and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
The pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down, and even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today, and let's get to work in your financial future.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I want to point out, give a shout out to the Wellness Company while I got you here before we get to Mr. Teague. twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, 10% off. Be prepared. I don't know what's coming, but something's coming. And I want my audience to be prepared for whatever pandemic comes down the pike. So you've got also all this food poisoning. You've got this parasite problems, screw worms coming up, all this kind of stuff. So make sure you are prepared for your family. So go to the Wellness Company, twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, and spend some time on the website and look at those emergency medical kits and look at the spike support and look at the memberships and look at everything. Spend some time and just play around. They got some very good products that I know can prepare you for whatever's coming, especially the travel emergency kit and the basic emergency medical kit. I've used it many times, and I can highly recommend the product. It's very comforting to know that you've got everything you need in your pocket if you're on the road and something happens. So take a look at that. All right, I'm going to bring in Mr. Teague, and let's talk interest rates. Tom, thank you, man.
Yeah.
So I'm an ex-bond guy. You were higher up in the food chain than me, but tell us what's going on in the bond market, man. Your mic's a little low. I don't know if it's
my mic's low.
No, that's better. That's better. Okay.
So this week, we've talked about this before on your show, but Bessent's been buying back. The Treasury's been buying back bonds, mostly the longer end of the curve, and mostly stuff that was issued at lower interest rate periods. when Yellen was actually the Treasury Secretary. And what he announced this week was that he was going to move from buying sort of 2 billion bonds per operation to 4 billion bonds. So he's doubling the size. And I just find it amazing that the media, the market, the critics, they're not really telling you the full story there. They're like, well, he's just buying back bonds and then issuing more bonds to pay for that. But that's not exactly what happens.
Yeah, there's a whole narrative out there. That's why I wanted you on, like trying to bash him, like he's an idiot who doesn't know what he's doing.
It's called yield curve management, and every single treasury is looking at it or does it. So it's not that he's crying uncle like I heard some Yahoo Finance story.
Yeah,
it's actually really smart. And what it does is, so like when you issue bonds at like during 2020, they issued 30-year bonds at between 1.5–2%. So call it 1.5%. Because yields have spiked because of, Biden and Powell raising rates. Now the, kind of prevailing yield on the 30-year is around 5.26. So those bonds are trading at a huge discount to where they were issued. Right. And there's like a formula that you look at. It's called duration, and you can roughly calculate where the bonds trade. So longer bonds have more price sensitivity on yield, and shorter bonds have less. So when he buys these bonds back, some of these bonds are trading at 60 cents on the dollar. So he's buying them back and they're gone. So we don't have to pay the difference between what he's paying and where they sold them at par. So there's 40 cents of every 100 cents issued that is gone, that disappears from our debt. And the only financing he has to do is to finance the purchase of those bonds that are trading at 60 cents. And then he's got to pay obviously a higher interest rate because it's more short dated. But that interest rate is not that big of a differential when you're looking at that big of a discount. You follow what I'm saying? So it's like,
let me just explain for our audience. So bonds, let's say you issue $1 million bond for 30 years, and because rates have gone up, that bond that was issued at 2% payoff is now trading at 6. So you can buy it back at 60 cents on the dollar. So you're reducing that principal, and they're reducing that principal substantially, almost by
so you're
half.
Getting rid of bond. You're getting rid of debt when each time you do this. So he's not getting any credit for that. And it's peculiar to me because you hear about these bond vigilantes. They should be loving this because this is a no-brainer. And I think that the world is such a messed up place right now. People are actually out there who I know who trade bonds who don't really understand this. And they're like, well, I don't know, people don't like it. And I'm like, it's a simple thing. Companies do it all the time. You're canceling your debt. You're getting rid of a portion of your debt that you don't have to pay back. And, it's sad because Yellen, when she was Treasury Secretary, she chose to front end, like to borrow shorter maturity debt.
Right.
When rates were very low, she should have borrowed in the back end. And there's a lot of people whom I respect, like Stanley Druckenmiller, who've talked about this, ad nauseum. It was a huge error on her part. But
we should have issued 200-year bonds at 0% is what we should have done.
Well, or very close. I mean, at the time, I think they were nitpicky because, the front end was almost at zero, and they were like, "Oh, well, I don't want to pay 1 or 2% for 30 years." But that at some point we're going to be back to that point. We're going to be back to higher yields, and so anyways, I don't think predicting inflation coming out of COVID was like you needed a crystal ball to do that. Most people knew that it was going to happen, and So I think, Bessent's getting a lot of grief for it. But again, I think a lot of this stuff and a lot of the criticisms right now of him are coming from, we're going into midterms. They're doing everything they can to win back the House and the Senate. The Democrats are. There's, every single thing these guys do is under massive criticism. And I personally applaud him for doing this because one is you're getting rid of debt. You're keeping yields somewhat lower. Although I will say, like after he announced this news, we had a rally in the bond market, and
they tried to make it look like that what he was doing was like managing an intervention, and it failed. I mean, that's what they tried to portray.
Doing this. he's been doing this for a long time, and he came out and said he may even increase these purchases to more than $4 billion each operation. So I think it's great. I've looked out there at all the outstanding bonds, and there's something like if you look at the issue amount and then you look at the market value, the difference is about 1.5 trillion. So if he bought everything back right now, we would lose 1.5 trillion roughly of outstanding debt, which would take us back down below, the 40 trillion.
Let me give an analogy to our audience, because everybody here is not bond traders. So let's say you run up 100,000 in credit card debt, and then the credit card company says, we'll make you only pay 60,000 back, but you have to pay 5% instead of 2% on that 60,000. That's essentially what's going on, right?
Well, also, if you think that, in the future, which I think outside of, we're trying to make changes in the Fed right now, but, there's, I think interest rates going up, going down, it's kind of even. I think, September now is like less than a 40% chance of a rate increase in September. So if rates come down and you're borrowing in the short end, then you get that very quickly, and that reduces your interest payments. So not only have you canceled debt that you bought back at a discount from where you issued it, you're also getting relief on the interest rate that you funded those purchases with, because rates on the front end are coming down when the Fed cuts. So it's not rocket science, but it's smart, and he's doing it. And, and I think, people are caught in this like whirlwind of BS that comes out of the media. And, one of the things the Fed's trying to do now is I think under Warsh, is he wants them to talk less and let the markets see the data more, so they don't know exactly what the Fed's going to do, and they're going to interpret it themselves. And so I think that there's been an easy ride for people because the Fed's been, very talkative. You get people coming out and expressing their views all the time. And that's not necessarily good for the market, because it sort of coaches the market on how the Fed's going to, and exactly how they're going to react. And
you can trade it. And then,
it provides easy trades for some very bad people. Right.
I
think all the stuff is very good that Bessent's doing.
I agree. I just wanted to clear that up, because there's a huge info op going on against him.
Yes, there is.
As we run into the election, and even Vance was talking about that in the cold open. Like, Bessent knows what he's doing. What do you think is going to go on with rates? Let's say, I think this is what's going to happen. We're going to have a protracted containment of Iran, possibly for years, and we're going to blockade the straits and build pipelines out of there, and there's not going to be a ground war. I don't know. What do you think oil is going to do in that scenario, and then follow on inflation? What do you think is going to happen there, and rates?
Well, oil's sort of come back to where, not at highs, but not far away from highs. So that's a bit concerning. Some of this stuff has nothing to do with Iran. Some of it has to do with what's going on with Ukraine hitting Russia, like the price of gas. Finding capacity, stuff like that makes gas price go up separate from oil. I think generally speaking, I think that the market is weary of this containment, and I believe what you say. I think that we're gonna basically shift a lot of the Straits of Hormuz trade, and it's going to go around. It's going to take some time, but a lot's already moving out. So if Trump can truly get control of the Straits of Hormuz and stop some of the, attacks on boats, and we can start moving traffic, oil comes down a lot faster, and that's really good. I don't think the market believes that right now at this moment. And I think Trump, I know all these people that are like, Trump's declared victory for the 25th time, but I think Trump's saying a lot of this stuff because he wants to get the oil price down.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard to really realize what's going on with Iran. I think every day that goes by, they're suffering. And they're trying to keep oil price high so he loses the midterms, right? And I think that's the game, the great game that's being played there. But I do think that with regards to oil, I think it will come down. once that sort of stabilizes. And I think short term is, people are nervous, like I said, but I think like there is a lot of oil out there. There is a lot of production. To the extent that they can get oil out of the Strait of Hormuz, also around it in pipelines, that'll contribute to a lower price. On the interest rate side, it's not just the U.S. It's every single, it's global interest rates are higher. We went through these periods of years where governments borrowed as much money as they wanted. The slower the economy, the tighter the bonds traded, like the lower interest rates we had. I think that that's run its course. We've gotten to a point where, Germany, Japan, UK, all their yields have gone up considerably. Japan's 30-year, I think, is as high of yield as it's been since 1996. People are talking about our 30-year bonds. The yield is as high as it was since 2007. So, it's a global thing that's going on. And I think that, right now, bond markets are generally despairing the fact that countries don't have economic growth and they're still borrowing. It's like this is the end of MMT, modern monetary theory, where, people were saying government should just borrow bonds as much as they want or borrow money as much as they want and use the money to, grow the economy, whatever. And they were just, spending the money. So I think there's a penalty going on. I think ultimately what happens in the U.S. is if we can grow our economy, and I think that's where a lot
that's
of the
that's what Vance was talking about this morning.
Yeah,
to grow ahead of the debt.
We'll get our bonds will get rewarded, and people, again, it's the election coming up, but Trump says our bonds are artificially high. They are. Because they shouldn't be trading there. If you look at the break evens and inflation going out further, the real yields are massive in our curve. So if you buy a 10-year and a real yield is the difference between what the expected inflation rate's going to be and what the bond yield is. So those are big numbers, and they're as high as they've been, since, I guess going back to pre GFC, great financial crisis. So I think our bonds are cheap, but they're not going to move in until rates start dropping. And that's another thing. Like people don't like I said before, price owned longer bonds moves more with yield. So there's more risk in it. So people can get a very good yield still in the short end of the curve because rates are still, high. Right. It has cut. So until that really happens, I think yields are kind of stuck here. But I think in the future, if the U.S. does grow, which it can, which I think the Fed is a huge impediment to this right now, and I think they're fighting it. But if we get that growth, I think our bonds will also be rewarded for that growth. And I think you're going to see at some point, like in the next 5 or 10 years, I think the U.S. Treasuries will be equal to or trade at a lower yield than even some of the countries like Japan, because we've got growth.
You mentioned something which really put an idea in my head just now, that the blob, for lack of a better word, the globalist regime that wants the U.S. to fail and wants Trump to fail, maybe keeping the Ukraine war going and these attacks on Russian refineries to keep the oil price high to hurt Trump.
I'm sure, I'm sure that's part of it. You gotta, I realize I look at the world this way now. So when we had the GFC, right, the great financial crisis, what was the result of that? The Democrats won Congress and Obama was president. It was like the biggest Democrat win that they've had. I don't know if I said Republicans before, but I meant Democrats. It was the biggest Democrat win they've had, I think, since possibly the Great Depression or whatever. Then you had COVID, right? Trump got all the blame for COVID. Fauci lied, Birx lied, blah, blah, blah. The Democrats won the presidency, largely because they blamed Trump for all the misgivings of COVID and all the problems and all this stuff. So you got to look at it. They get power when bad stuff happens, right? They are the party of misery. So it works for them when they break things, that they get elected and they get power. Sure. And that's the whole thing. So I don't doubt for a second that Ukraine knows that, They know that if gas prices go up, they can kill two birds with one stone. They can get rid of Trump, who's not fully going and doing everything they want him to do. And I think personally, Trump probably wants to see an end to the Ukraine war.
Yes.
They want to keep it going. Europe wants a bigger war with Russia. We all know that. Like,
Yes.
why? I have no idea. They're going to get their asses handed to them. But it would be a lot easier if they had someone besides Trump, or they had a Congress that was wholeheartedly in the same lines as all the globalists in the EU. So what you're saying makes complete sense to me. They are the party of misery. They benefit when they break things. And that's what they're going to try and do. And I think if you look at the stuff, like the Powell this morning was like, oil price is high. We're going to probably have a rate increase, like this is inflationary. One, he shouldn't even be part of the board of governors. He should be out of there. But two, this is what's going on. They want to deep six everything Trump's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, one of my biggest criticisms with the Fed, past and present, well, before Warsh came in, is that when we have supply shocks, like oil, for example, markets should be using substitution to find other ways of bringing prices down. And you have to do investment for that. So like right now, coal companies should be going crazy because oil price is high, right? Yeah. So you can switch from natural gas for power to coal, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not happening because the world thinks that the Fed's going to raise interest rates and you have no investment. And that problem is a major problem in the old Fed, in that when you have a supply shock like this, you should be encouraging investment in all these alternatives, even if it's wind, even if it's solar, whatever it is, so that you don't have that dependency. You can move away from that dependency on oil price to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen because the Fed, every time we have this problem and we have a supply shock, they're threatening to raise rates. No one is going to invest in anything in that kind of like backdrop. It's just not going to happen.
I also read that we're taking like almost all of Venezuela's oil, but there's a bottleneck in some of the delivery mechanisms, like the ports, I find that fascinating. I mean, if we didn't have that, obviously that was done prior to the Iran war to open that spigot, to the US.
I would agree. But let me say one more thing. There's a lot of people who are getting angry at Trump because he's like pulling troops out of South Korea, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, South Korea imports like 100% of their oil from the Middle East, right? It's in their interest to be supportive of what we're doing with Iran, because if that blows up, they don't get oil. So when they say we're not going to get involved in this, he's basically fighting a war for their benefit. They're the ones who are going to do either poorly or really well if this thing gets resolved. So when
there's another wrinkle to that. We've been reporting, which you may not be aware of, that the South Korean government's completely infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party. Their elections are rigged. The president tried to fix it in the last cycle. He was put in jail for life for trying to get to the election machines and find out what was going on. So there's a much bigger layer to that.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes sense.
So it's fascinating. What you were mentioning the Fed. When can we get? I think we're lurching towards some kind of new financial system. Where do we stand with the Fed itself in the long run? What do you think is going to happen? Is it a fixture forever?
Yeah, I don't think the Rand Paul manifesto is gonna, or Ron Paul manifesto is gonna happen. I think central banks, like most institutions in the country, there's a need for them. It's just been completely corrupted, and it's been filled with partisan people, and it's gotten completely politicized. And I'm amazed at how many, when Biden was president, I obviously wasn't a huge fan. I didn't want the country to collapse so that my side would get seats. That's not what I want. But there are so many people right now that don't care if they break things. Like I said before, it's a perverse incentive system, right? Like the Democrats get power if things break. So a lot of people in the Fed say whatever they want to say. They're looking to get jobs, like this guy Kashkari in the Fed. You know, I think he's looking to get a job. So he's being really critical, like, oh, well, we got to fight inflation. I mean, we need to get through this, and we need to be very careful about, you know, hurting the economy, because look, we're running a deficit right now, and we don't have a recession. If we have a recession, we're going to run an even bigger deficit. What does that do to our debt? And we don't, by the way, during recessions, the government's not taking in a lot of taxes. So your deficits get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we really need to expedite this growth in this country. And it's sitting in front of us. We're one of the best positioned countries in the world, major countries in the world, to really grow. It's just that right now the Fed's in the way. So, you know, I think you were also kind of implying, like, you know, what happens to the digital currency stuff. I think, and I've said this before, I think part of the plan over the long run is to use digital currency, but a lot of people are scared of that. They're like, well, they can just take it. They can take away anything you have anyways. Like the FBI is one of the largest holders of Bitcoin, right? That they seize for everybody, right? So, but I think what's going to happen is, and I think you'll see this globally, I think a lot of the cash that's out there sitting in accounts will be backed by digital, it will become digital currency that will be backed by treasury bills. And I think that absorbs a lot of the supply, and it's a sensible thing. Bessent's talked about it. I think that would have a huge impact in easing some of our debt, because it would create more demand for it to sit in accounts.
You're talking about the dollar stable coins. I forget what
dollar stable coins. Yes.
Yeah. So, and that whole act is being held up by the Democrats in Congress, which is what it's called, not the Genius, but the New Clarity Act, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Or the regulation for the crypto. So they're stopping that from coming on board. Do you know Catherine Austin Fitts? Have you listened to her at all?
Yeah, she's. I mean, look, she's interesting. I've gotten, you know, there's some things that I just don't buy. Right? You could go so far on conspiracy, and then you get to like ridiculous conspiracy or whatever.
The deep underground military bases. You're not a believer in that?
No. Yeah, we've got $18 trillion of deep underground, military bases. I'm not buying everything she's selling. Put it that way.
Well, I mean,
you've got to, just for your sanity, you've got to like take everything with a grain of salt. You know.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, look. I like, first of all, you look at everything that Trump and his family has gone through. If they were really part of this globalist conspiracy, like, wouldn't it have been a lot easier? Wouldn't they have gone a little easier on him? You know, wouldn't they? Like the guys, they tried to kill him twice, right? Like, if you start believing stuff like, well, actually, it was all faked. Like, okay, whatever, you know.
My viewpoint is on all of this is that, you know, I think I've said it before. I think Trump made a deal to get elected. The Iran war was part of that. The whole Secret Service, all the infrastructure is infiltrated with people, and that he's probably threatened by deep state actors.
I mean, look, Vladimir Putin is threatened by deep state actors, right? Yeah. There's a deep state in pretty much every country, right? Like. They what happens when somebody gets out of control? There's got to be a contingency system for that. And so, I mean, I think it's gone way beyond that. But yeah, I mean, I always say, don't hate the player, hate the game. I mean, look, like Obama was in there with Syria, you know, all the Libya stuff, you know, like most of the really bad destruction that's gone on in the Middle East. Like that's caused the great, like, immigration and, you know, all the major problems was done under that guy. Right. Yes, so, like, you know, I don't know, maybe he didn't have a choice either. Maybe they're like, look, you can do some of the things you want to do, but you have to do this for us. And that's plausible. You know, I don't think the president of the United States can do whatever he wants with foreign policy. And we saw that in Trump's first term. You remember when this whole thing blew up with the Ukraine and the phone call, and you had, and I forgot what that woman's name was, Yovanovitch, who was testifying, and she was saying that, you know, Trump was not adhering to the policies of the State Department.
Yes.
The president's supposed to make those policies, and they're supposed to, you know, shut the F up and deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what he gets elected for. But that just told you everything you need to know, right?
Sure. Yeah, it really makes you wonder. Anyway, we're just trying to get the truth out and make good decisions. I am concerned about the midterms. I hope, you know, we can continue to make progress. I don't want these commies in power. That's what I do know, because, you know, then we're looking at a gulag situation. What about the markets? Last question. Where do you see value? Anything working?
I think, you know, this week, not that I'm a huge fan of Moderna, but they came out with, I think, a phase 3 trial on an mRNA drug, which mRNA was meant to be like sort of for cancer.
Yeah.
And they used us all as guinea pigs during COVID and mass tested it on the population, which I think there needs to be some serious justice that comes from that. But one thing I think about biotech in general, not any one company, is that AI is going to have an enormous impact on the time that it takes to find new things, the time that it takes to test them, the time that it takes to implement them. And I think there's going to be, like, one of the biggest beneficiaries of AI will be in the biotech industry. So I generally like biotech. I generally like, you know, I hate to say it, but some of the big pharmas, like I think Lilly's, you know, a great company. You look at their earnings, you look at the drugs they're coming out with. You know, at the end of the day, like, I have a friend who has cancer, and he's like, as suspicious as he was over the pharma stuff, he's like, at the end of the day, you need what they make, because that's how you live, right? So it's more of a balanced kind of scenario. But I think the biotech space will do really well with AI. I think generally, though, like, September's kind of a tough month. I think the market, you know, hit new highs. I think that there's going to be a lot of people who try to throw a wrench in the machine with the economy going into the midterms. I mean, just let's face facts. The Democrats and all their people that are in all these institutions want to win the midterms. So that means something bad has to happen in the economy. And I generally think it's a hard one to fight. So I'm not looking to, like, get massive longs in this market, you know, over the next couple of months till I have more visibility on that, because I think they're going to try everything they can to deep six this economy. They always do.
Sell in May and go away, right?
Yeah. Well, in this case, selling August. But,
yeah. You know, all of this, you talk about big pharma, it seems to me, yes, we need pharma, but we need integrity back in the system, not just in pharma, but everywhere. I mean, the problem in pharma is we gave them the advertising on, so they're controlling the media. All this was planned.
Oh, I think it's been going on for a long time. I mean, I don't think, like, you look at Pfizer and how many lawsuits they have had for falsifying results, if I'm not mistaken, on studies. I mean, it's part of their business model. Right.
Yeah. And they just pay the cost of the litigation. Yeah.
I think there's some really bad incentives going on, I think, across the country, you know, in the world. I think we're living in one of those times right now. But I think generally pharma is doing stuff that keeps people alive longer. Like, generally there's exceptions to that. I think, you know, we all know what happened during COVID. We all know about the clot shots and the effects and the cancer increases and, you know, all this stuff. And I think there needs to be hell to pay for this. But I also think, you know, at the end of the day, with AI and with a lot of these companies, they're going to extend human life expectancy. So, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. But I agree with you. They need to be monitored more. And I think the influence they have over the media is disgraceful.
Yeah. Well, it's a crisis of integrity across all our institutions, all our every corporate sector has got it. Education, the military, all of it. The Republican, the parties.
By Fabians.
Tom, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it. Have you back. Take care. Bye.
excited to announce that we're having our biggest Made in America sale ever. We just put huge discounts on products made right here in the USA. My Pillow bed pillows, body pillows, go anywhere pillows, bolster pillows, all made with my patented adjustable fill. Mattresses, mattress toppers, mattress pads, adjustable bed frames, mattress foundations, and so much more. All made right here in the USA. And now we're expanding our USA products beyond just quality sleep. Like the cross I wear every day, now available in both men's and women's. We even have USA-made socks. And are you tired of being tired? Try our new health beverage, Rev 7. Or how about my coffee, the greatest coffee ever? So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get deep discounts on all these products. Plus, for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Divorce is tough, but your finances don't have to be. I'm David Cross, and I'm a certified divorce financial analyst practitioner. My job is to help you get a fair financial settlement in your divorce and to guide you to smarter money decisions. Find out how we can help you. U.S. Asset Management. It's your money.
A warm welcome here at the National Press Club. Welcome to the journalists, welcome to the Embraer team, and welcome to the other guests that we have here. I'm going to announce, and as some of you guessed it right when they came in, the first E2 order by an American operator. And that operator is Avello. We believe this is really a strategic shift to unlock profitability for the customer. I'm very pleased that we have Andrew Levy here as the CEO of Avello, and I'm very pleased to give the stage to share a little bit more about what Avello is going to do with the E2 195. Thank you very much.
Couldn't be more excited to be here as part of this historic announcement. We have such a great cultural fit as companies, so we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret, silver wings.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I always love Tom. He's always got some great insight, and I agree. We have a similar view of the world, so it's always great talking to him. Need your help. Need you to go and sign up for our no ad subscriptions. We need the financial support to fund everything we're doing. If you go to my.cdm.press for our audio audience, my.cdm.press, you can sign up for our no ad paywall. It's not a lot of money. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. You get access to everything. A lot of people just pay the $100 and you're done for 12 months, and you can jump around from site to site with no ads. We're putting out so much content. You're going to want to see it all. We started with a new ad company, so there's going to be more new ads on the sites because we have to make money to survive. But if you don't want to see those ads, please just sign up for our no ad subscriptions, and it gives us revenue every month we can count on. You're funding free media. You're funding your child's future, literally, because this is the key that picks the lock to a free future for humanity is free media. So please support us in that manner. Let's talk about a few stories. In Ukraine, we've been following this pretty closely. Fedorov was the defense minister. Zelensky fired him. And then Fedorov said, well, you know what, we really need to have elections during wartime and there's a whole media narrative that the Ukrainian constitution prevents elections during wartime. That is false. That is a lie that's being propagated across the AI channels. I've noticed that very clearly. There was a statute passed by a parliament that is unelected, meaning they have outlived their mandate. and they passed this law saying you couldn't have elections during wartime, during martial law, but it's not against the Constitution, and the statute is unconstitutional. So this is a very clear case I've seen with, I'm just writing that down so I can write an article about this. Very clear case of Ukraine, of AI putting out information that's false to try to push the narrative. So we'll put something out on that later. But the empire struck back in Ukraine, and there was some protests saying we need to get rid of Zelensky and put in Fedorov. Well, when he started talking about changing the elections, that got shut down pretty quickly, or at least holding elections to get rid of Zelensky. So the blob does not want that. The establishment, the war party, does not want that, and they want Zelensky to remain in power in Ukraine, to continue killing Christians and continue to depopulate the entire region. So very good article up on our Eastern European site, Tsarism.com. Fauci's right-hand man just went down, and now the state attorney generals are coming after Mr. Fauci. That is something we hope that happens, and he goes to prison for life for a mass murder. But it's also the whole infrastructure behind him who did this. You know, they may be just throwing him under the bus. There's a whole infrastructure of biomedical industrial complex that did this, all with full knowledge of what was going on. It wasn't just Fauci. So yes, he needs to go to prison to hold people accountable, but there's a whole structure behind him that needs to go to prison as well. Bessent is about to drop the hammer economically on Iran, and we had a good discussion with Tom Teague on that exact issue, on the debt and how Bessent is managing that while using the economic levers of power to shut down the Iranian economy. I think we've come to the point where we're going to have a containment of Iran, and economic containment, and they will find a way to get oil out of the Persian Gulf, either over land or via the Strait, or both, probably both. But I think that is the long-term plan here, and we're happy that that didn't blossom into a full-scale ground war. So we're happy with that. We want a good outcome for the United States. We were against the war in the beginning, but now that we're in it, we want a good outcome for our children's future. We don't want the U.S. to collapse. We don't want U.S. power to collapse. We want to continue to wield our power, hopefully in a much better manner going forward, if we can get rid of a lot of this deep state operatives that are pushing a whole nother agenda for American power. Britain's Home Office put out a pamphlet to all new migrants saying rape is bad. You know, women can actually go out of the house on their own, and a whole cultural guide for new third world migrants, Islamic migrants, and for asylum seekers, they call it. It's garbage. This is an intentional invasion of Europe, but this has caused a big issue in Parliament, and maybe given pushed a crack open to try to deport a lot of these people and maybe save the UK, although I doubt it. I think it may be too late, but this is a story we want to continue to watch. The View, ABC and Disney want their cake and eat it too. They want to act like biased political operatives on their show, but they want to say they're journalists and they shouldn't lose their license, their broadcasting license, because there are rules that go with using airspace, the airwaves, to broadcast, and you have a license for that under the U.S. government, and there are rules for that, and they're breaking the rules, but they want it both ways. So this is a story we're going to continue to follow, but you can find this on cdm.press. Last story I wanted to show you is North Korea dropped about 10 ballistic missiles in the sea. This is on armedforces.press, our military channel. You can find it there, and look at kind of the actions going on in Asia. There's a lot going on in Asia. There is Israel and Turkey, there's Ukraine and Russia, and there's Asia, Japan, China, North Korea, South Korea, all of this. We're trying to give you as good of information as we can. By the way, Susan Kokinda will be back on for an interview later this month. I'm looking forward to that, from Promethean Action. She's got a lot of really good information. That's it. I had a guy coming on from Eastern Europe today, or excuse me, from Western Europe, to talk about what's going on in the UK, but he couldn't do it. He's got some family issues, so we'll try to schedule that again later. So have a good weekend. We'll be back on the Georgia Show Sunday at 2 p.m. with Bill Quinn, and we'll be back on the SCIF Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern, on Monday at 10 a.m. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time. I really appreciate you coming on. Take care. Check out those no ad subscriptions. Oh, check out our socials, please. If you haven't done it yet, go to CDM_press on X, CDM1 on Rumble, and search CDM Press on YouTube. And please subscribe. Even if you don't watch us there, we need to pop all those numbers up. So thank you. We'll see you Monday at 10 o'clock and 2 p.m. Sunday on the Georgia Show with Bill Quinn. A lot going on in Georgia. Take care.